and welcome back to the Nasty Metal Production channel here at YouTube, and welcome to another album of the week. This is episode number 158, and today's episode is focused on Onward to the Pits, the second full-length album from Norwegian death thrashers Deathhammer, which was released through Hells Headbangers Records on May 9th of 2012. And since this past Thursday was May 12th, it has already reached its 10th anniversary. So 10 years to, I guess you can say, a modern, extreme metal classic in a way. But either way, it is definitely one of the band's finest albums, in my opinion. So there we go. So Deathhammer, if you're not familiar with these guys, of course are based out of Hamar. I guess actually both places from Norway, which I'm gonna do my best to pronounce these correctly. Hamar in Latin / Grimstad Agder. Hope I pronounced all that correctly. Again, Norway, and formed all the way back in 2005, and it was formed by two guys who, of course, have been the main members since. Everyone else has been either live musicians, but again, that being Sergeant Salston, again, who provides both bass, guitar, and vocals. And of course, we have Sodomancer, who provides drums, guitars, vocals, backing. So again, since 2005, and they've released a ton of stuff before releasing their very first full-length album in 2010. But their demos, again, Barbaric Onslaught from 2006, and then the same year they released Savage Poser Hunt. Then in 2007 they released The Wrath of the Antichrist. Then in 2008 they released their very first EP, which is titled Forever Ripping Fast, which then became the name for the compilation that I believe was released through the same label that released their debut full-length album, which was Hells Headbangers Records. I was almost was thinking another label here, actually, which was Witch's Brew, but I guess that was the EP. But again, either way, I think Forever Ripping Fast, again, had some demo tracks tacked onto it. But again, it was like what compilations here, what the Rotting demos, First Blood, everything. But finally, we get into 2010 with, of course, Phantom Nights, which was, again, released through Witch's Brew on October 11th of 2010. And it was limited to at least 700 copies. And to this day is a very scarce release. To find actually most of the stuff from Deathhammer is not that easy to find unless you're looking correctly, which I was lucky to at least to have found, like Onward to the Pits here, and of course the album afterwards, Evil Power at least, and Raspinen, because they have gotten rare, and I'll get into some of that. I'll get into the availability for Onward to the Pits, but Phantom Nights at least has had a reissue over the years, but still, they're not very easy to track down. So, in many ways, this finally just leads us into their their second full-length album. Sorry if I'm a little bit shaky today. I got my COVID shot, so my first one actually. So I'm just a little bit shaky a bit, even though I'm feeling just fine. Just that I did a lot of running around today, and obviously I feel a little bit tired. But I'm trying to push forward because I know I may not have a whole lot of time also for the next day to actually record this. Which again, I'm recording this on a Saturday, so Sunday may not. Who knows what's going to be for Sunday? But right now, I think it's a better day, and right now I got a lot of free time to really get this episode through. So I just had to really kind of make that apparent here and just announce that, just because if you're just wondering why I'm sounding just a little bit tiresome a little bit today on this episode. But I'm moving on, so I digress. Okay, so on to the pits. The recording sessions for this album at least took place in 2011 in Gladland, I believe is definitely in Norway. It's not really specified where in Norway, but it's obviously in Norway. But again, at least it's not specified on what month or day that the recording sessions for Onward to the Pits took place. But at least it was, again, according even to, again, on the album liner notes and everything and the information, it was obviously sometime in 2011 at, of course, Gladland. Eventually, it gets released through Hells Headbangers Records, which was their first full-length album to be released through Hells Headbangers Records on May 9th of 2012, and thus we are gifted Onward to the Pits. And if you were not familiar with the way they sounded before on albums like Phantom Nights and the Forever Ripping Fast EP, the first track here, Death Thrashing Sacrifice, which clocks in at 3 minutes and 07 seconds, should give you a easy indication of what you're expecting with now. I mean, look at the artwork for, of course, Onward to the Pits. I mean, the artwork here, since I'm going to read the person who did the artwork for the album, I know I kind of cacked at least a bit there. I ticked. I'm trying to find, I think it was, by Edward Johnson. He, of course, again, I know some people will bitch and complain about how it just looks amateurish, like almost it was drawn by a child. However, it depends on how gifted your child is that can actually draw. And I can say I can never draw as great as this to begin with. I actually wasn't that fantastic at drawing, so obviously I would prefer to have this person's skills than the skills I have at coming up with artwork. That's why I have to do some sort of other weird stuff, or I guess slightly more creative stuff to actually really get decent artwork for any of my releases. So I'm tipping my hat to, of course, to Edward Johnson for the artwork for Onward to the Pits here. So let me just get right into it, to, of course, the track listing, so I can get this out of the way. Since we have at least about 10 songs here, it all clocks in at the length of 39 minutes and 1 second. So these 10 songs are, since I already mentioned Death Thrashing Sacrifice, we then move on to Voodoo Rites, Full Moon Sorcery, Emperor of Sin, To the Evil, Final Black Mass, Army of Death, Seduced by the Flames, Lead Us into Hell, and then finally ending with Onward to the Pits. Again, the title track, which is actually the only instrumental on the entire record, and it's what ends it out. So, there it is. And since I already mentioned Death Thrashing Sacrifice being an indicator to the listener of what you're expecting because of these guys, if you were familiar with the first album, and I've listened to the first album quite a bit. I mean, I ended up listening to the first album after I actually got Onward to the Pits, because for years, the friends I was friends with over at the Force of Steel Forum, which again, rest in peace. Again, it's no longer active now. It became inactive at least, a month or so. And again, my friend Painkiller, who was the founder of that forum, him and of course Metal Samurai, just to name either avatar synonyms, or they're just their online synonym names. Every time I would chat with them, they always would recommend how freaking great Deathhammer were. I mean, was it Metal Samurai actually had went and seen Deathhammer, because they actually came to was it L.A., New Orleans, or something like that. They were New Orleans. They came down there, and during their small U.S. tours, and I just was like, I gotta check in it. The only album they had out at the time was Onward to the Pits. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to probably find a copy of Onward to the Pits, which wasn't that difficult to come across because of during my trips down here to Fresno, before I really ended up moving back down to Fresno at Rasmussen Music. I think it was 2013, 2012, at least sometime then, right, of course, before they were going to release Evil Power, or it could have been in 2012, around the time that this album was a new release. I ended up finding a copy, and I purchased it, or at least I walked out, of course, with it, but not that I stole it. Still, I ended up getting a copy, and I went home and listened to this, and I'm like, whoa. And then I went back and listened to Phantom Nights, and again, the overall attitude, I guess you say, maybe the overall performances are almost like night and day. They were completely, I mean, they had the overall concept there for what they were trying to achieve in their minds, you know, what they have creatively, you know, that what they were thinking of what they wanted their music to sound like. Because again, they were taking influences from a lot, like whether it be, let's say, at times, some of the black metal bands like from Norway, like maybe like Mayhem and Gogoroth and some of those kind of bands, you know, or Immortal, but combining it with almost a German thrash kind of feel of like Sodom, Destruction, Creator, Violent Force, Death Row, you know, and just some of these kind of bands, and maybe throw in a little bit of the American kind of sound or British sound if you're gonna throw in like Onslaught and Virus and those kind of bands, and then just combine it with the more ferocious stuff of like Dark Angel and whatnot, and just have more of a feral sound. They've had that. I think they had that in their mindset, but I don't think it came off nearly as, at least close to their vision on Phantom Nights as it does here on Onward to the Pits. Because just from the opening taste of Death Thrashing Sacrifice, you are in for pretty much a hellish hell ride, or in many ways, almost like a hail of bullets. Because this sound throws as much chaos at you as much as it can. This does not want to let up at times. This is like almost straight up barbaric. This is just, it shows no boundaries. It shows no remorse. It sets out what it's supposed to be set out to, and that is to make sure that the listener comes out of this album feeling that he just got whiplashed through a freaking bonfire. Like he just got jumped into it or thrown into a bonfire, and without any sort of way to get out of that bonfire. Basically torching the listener to the point to where they just look like a brim piece of charcoal. That's about what it's supposed to, I think it was set out to do, and that's basically leave the listener in completely dust, to where you probably almost like that a Family Guy joke where I forgot how the joke went or how the thing went, who the picture was, but it was Peter Griffin. He actually shows the photo at Chris, and it's like, this is how she looked before, this is how she looks now, and he just ends up turning into a goddamn skeleton. But instead of being made as some cruel, mean joke, it is more like it's set out to just blistering on just saying, screw you, you're gonna make sure that you come out of this sound feeling that you went through a corpse grinder. I know I'm not to meaning any pun, you know, like Corpse Grinder Fisher from Cannibal Corpse. But that's just the overall way I'm trying to describe in the entire record, because I probably can go through the songs, but I think you just need to know the description of what the album itself ends up sounding like, and what is probably the overall definition of what Onward to the Pits is. And these are the best ways I can do for you in describing Onward to the Pits as a whole. This is not meant to be lit like to be heard as your typical sort of metal record. This is just meant to be seen as an oral assault on the ears. It's supposed to make you sound like make you come out feeling like you went through a hallway of needles or nails, I guess, especially like mostly metal nails, you know, like hammers and everything. It's like it's meant like that, almost like a Texas Chainsaw Massacre film in a way, or even a hardcore wrestling match, especially one for like GCW. Like if you had at least in a way, it's like, I know I don't want to mention guys like Nick Gage, but I'm just meaning like more like classic hardcore wrestling matches where it's meant by, let's say, burning tables and thumbtacks, everything like the classic matches like Terry Funk and Mick Foley, or any ones between, let's say, Sandman and Raven, where it's just complete bloodbaths. That's kind of the way you come out of Onward to the Pits feeling like you went through a little destructive, brutal wrestling match. That's when it ends up feeling like, and you're tired, you got probably blood on your face, you got some cuts somewhere, you probably have some burn spots there after probably being tossed into or broken into a burning table. That's the best way I can do for you in describing Onward to the Pits. This is an album that leaves no one without any air. So afterwards, you're basically have to probably make sure that you take a sit somewhere and probably go through a breathing tank. That's basically the way I can describe Onward to the Pits. I mean, again, just from songs like the opening song, Death Thrashing Sacrifice, to Voodoo Rites, Full Moon Sorcery, Emperor of Sin, to the Evil, Army of Death, Seduced by the Flames, and Lead Us into Hell, and finally into the very last song, Onward to the Pits, to where this song is a complete oral assault in its own right as well, and just by the time the song ends, you are basically being accompanied and blanketed with the sounds of what is supposed to be the sound effects of a burning pit. Probably what you see described on the artwork on the album, and that's what it is. And the way that they have mixed this fiery pit sound is a little bit nauseating at times. It's almost very claustrophobic because of it really sounds like you are inside an entire almost a human-sized barbecue pit. And there's like, obviously you can hear chains in the background a bit. It's like you're expecting literally Satan himself to actually walk out from behind and probably crack you with this whip or something and basically leave you scarring. Because that's the overall sound effect that I get from the title track here. And that basically is how the album ends, and that's all you probably need to know more about Onward to the Pits. And that's why I'm just going to leave it here, because this is one of those albums where if you like your thrash metal or your death thrash, a very chaotic and very brutal and a little bit, again, on the extreme side, that is very raw sounding, where the production is not supposed to sound perfect, or it sounds a little bit almost uncooked at times, where it just has a very feral tone to it. If you want your thrash metal to sound like that, this is the perfect album for you. Even to the point where even the vocals and everything are not meant to be heard by ears who want something to sound completely perfect, where at least where you're expecting everything to sound completely in tune. So if you just want that kind of style of thrash metal, this is the right kind of album for you. And I recommend Onward to the Pits. So again, 10 years to a classic record that I basically cherish this day ever since I got it from Rasputin. And it is amongst one of my favorite thrash metal albums that come out within modern times. So, and I've spoken quite a bit about Deathhammer on this channel. So there it is. Just a great album from start to finish. So that's about it for just my overall thoughts on Onward to the Pits. So, with that, I hope all of you, again, as far as, availability, it's not very easy to get a hold of. It has gone out of print now. It's gone out of print. And trying to find copies on eBay is difficult, because I've never seen much copies of this now, especially on CD, pop up on eBay. On Discogs, you're probably going to have to pay $20 at least, maybe 30. Way more than I had paid for my copy at Rasputin, some 10 years ago. So there it is. Alright, so that's pretty much, I'm just going to leave it there. So until then, this is Heavy Thrasher saying I'm out, and I'll see you all later. Take care, everyone.